The Arab billionaire spoke in Arabic, and only the young black waitress responded, plunging the entire room into stunned silence. In the presidential conference room of the Westwood Hotel, the atmosphere was so tense it could almost be tasted. A $5 billion real estate deal was on the brink of collapse. A long table draped in white was covered with files and legal documents. On one side sat James Wilson, the powerful CEO of Pinnacle Investments, one of America's largest real estate firms. His hands were clenched beneath the table. Opposite him was Sheikh Khaled Al Hassan, director of the Abu Dhabi National Investment Fund. His face was cold yet resolute. This was no ordinary contract. It was a gargantuan $5 billion deal aimed at transforming 5 Manhattan neighborhoods into a pioneering model of modern sustainable development. Wilson had spent 3 months meticulously preparing, spending millions on lawyers and interpreters, but now he felt failure looming. Sheikh Khaled sat upright with decisive presence. After listening to Wilson's reasonable proposals, delivered in impeccable Oxfordian English, the sheikh suddenly switched to rapid, machine-gun-like Arabic. The room was shaken. Paul Evans and Martin Harris, the two professional interpreters Wilson had flown in, exchanged panicked glances. Despite years of diplomatic experience translating high-level talks between the U.S. and the Middle East, they were utterly outmatched. Sweat beaded on their foreheads as they struggled to grasp the financial jargon and cultural nuances in the sheikh's sharp tone. But it was hopeless. Wilson felt his world crumbling. He had weathered stronger storms in his career, but never such helplessness. A heavy, awkward silence settled, broken only by the urgent Arabic whispers between Khalid and his advisors. "Paul, Martin, what is he saying? We need to know," barked Wilson, leaning forward. Paul wiped his brow, his voice trembling. "Sir, he's using a lot of financial and governance terms we can't follow," Martin added, equally flustered. "He's contesting Section 4.3 of the contract, but we can't pinpoint his exact objections." Anger and despair rose in Wilson. He had spent a fortune on these two experts to avoid precisely this kind of miscommunication. Yet here they were, the weakest link in a $5 billion chain. He glanced at his assistant, Richard Turner, pleading for a solution. Turner merely shrugged, eyes downcast. Meanwhile, Sheikh Khalid raised his hand, slapping it on the table, the echo reverberating off the walls. Some of his advisors nodded in sync, their impatience growing. Neither side had any idea how to proceed. Wilson knew that if he didn't act fast, the sheikh would stand, walk out, and take the $5 billion opportunity with him. He took a deep breath, steeling himself, when movement caught his eye from the corner of the room. Jasmine Bennett, a young black waitress in the Westwood Hotel's impeccable uniform, was quietly refilling the guests' coffee cups. For 3 days she had observed the negotiations in silence, absorbing every detail. Yet no one had even noticed her. To them, Jasmine was invisible, just part of the room service. They couldn't have been more wrong. As the sheikh continued his tirade in his native tongue, Jasmine's eyes lit up with confidence. She knew exactly why the deal was faltering, and though she understood the risk she was taking, her sense of dignity and justice compelled her to act. Gently setting down the coffee pot, she stepped out of the shadows, straightened up, and took a steadying breath. In perfect, flawless Arabic, she spoke. "Your Highness, Sheikh, if I may, I believe I know the source of this misunderstanding." Instantly, the room fell into a deathly silence. Every eye, Wilson's incredulous stare, Turner's astonished gaze, even the sheikh's surprised eyebrow raise, fixed on the small black woman standing before them. The fate of Pinnacle Investments, this $5 billion deal, and Wilson's own reputation now hung on her words. Never before had the presidential suite of the Westwood Hotel felt so stifling and yet so brimming with possibility. When the fluent Arabic words rang out from the corner of the luxurious meeting room, all eyes in the presidential suite of the Westwood Hotel turned to Jasmine Bennett, the young black woman who had spoken so unexpectedly. Yet, just moments before, she had been entirely invisible to them, no more than an insignificant ornament. There she stood, petite, dressed in her flawless black and white waitress uniform. Every fold of the fabric was meticulously ironed each morning before she left her modest, run-down New York apartment. Her face was calm and confident, though her heart pounded with anxiety. She knew full well that by doing this, she was thrusting herself into the spotlight, something she had spent years avoiding. Jasmine's gaze settled on Richard Turner, the executive vice president of Pinnacle Investments, the only person in the room she had come to know more intimately over the past few days than anyone else. Turner was always impeccably dressed in his expensive suit. His hair was slicked back to perfection, his eyes cold and calculating. But those eyes had never looked at her with respect, not even when she placed a steaming cup of coffee before him. He never met her gaze. For 3 days, Jasmine had quietly fulfilled her role as a coffee server in this opulent suite, witnessing the most critical negotiation in Pinnacle Investments history. Each morning as she entered, Turner was the first to frown and issue a disdainful reminder in a tone dripping with contempt. "Miss Bennett, move quickly and stay out of sight. I don't want our international clients thinking we employ unprofessional help in this meeting room." Those words cut like an invisible slap, but Jasmine had merely nodded politely and murmured, "Yes, sir." She understood that Turner's demand for her to remain invisible had nothing to do with professionalism. He objected because she was a black woman standing among powerful white men. Each time Jasmine approached him, Turner would subtly shift his chair away, his eyes flashing with suspicion and annoyance as if she threatened his social standing. Each time her heart tightened in her chest, but she pressed her lips together and quietly completed her task before slipping into a corner where no one paid attention. Few in that room knew that the young black woman carrying the coffee held a master's degree in international finance from New York University with highest honors and had spent 2 years analyzing complex global financial structures for the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, the very structures being discussed here. Before the 2008 financial crisis, Jasmine's life was full of promise. Her father, Joseph Bennett, a brilliant engineer at one of New York's top construction firms, had built a stable life for their family. But the crisis shattered everything. His company collapsed, their home was foreclosed, and shortly after, her father died of a stroke. While Jasmine was still in Abu Dhabi, his death forced her to return to the U.S., interrupting her career to care for her ailing mother and younger sister. Back in New York, Jasmine faced a brutal reality. No one would hire a black woman, no matter her qualifications. She sent hundreds of job applications to banks, investment firms, and financial companies of all sizes, only to receive polite rejections or skeptical looks that judged her by her skin and background. In desperation, she took a waitressing job at the Westwood Hotel, far beneath her skill level, but it paid the bills and allowed her to pursue a doctorate in international finance at Columbia University. What Jasmine never anticipated was that this humble job would bring her to the $5 billion real estate negotiation where her true expertise would prove pivotal. Back in the present, the presidential suite fell completely silent after Jasmine spoke. Turner's face twisted with disbelief and anger as he leapt to his feet. "Miss Bennett, what do you think you're doing? This is no time to play games. Leave this room immediately and return to serving coffee." His words were sharp as a knife. Yet Jasmine stood tall, chin lifted, meeting his gaze without flinching. "Mr. Turner, I'm not joking. I understand this negotiation and exactly why Sheikh Khaled is dissatisfied. I only want to help." Turner sneered, a condescending smirk on his lips. "Help? You're just a coffee server. What could you possibly know about a $5 billion deal? Either you're deliriously arrogant or you've lost your mind." Wilson, still stunned, raised a hand to restrain Turner, his eyes fixed on Jasmine, a mix of curiosity and skepticism in his gaze. "Wait, Richard, let her speak." Wilson's intervention made Turner hesitate, though his contemptuous stare lingered. Jasmine took a steadying breath, determined to prove she was no longer invisible. She knew this was the moment her fight against prejudice truly began, a moment that could change everything. The atmosphere in the presidential suite of the Westwood Hotel grew even tenser after Jasmine's unexpected declaration. She stood steady as a rock amid the storm sweeping through this $5 billion negotiation. Her bright yet calm eyes scanned the still shocked faces. Across the table, Sheikh Khaled al-Hassan, the hard-faced Arab billionaire, leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting instantly from irritation to marked curiosity. He gestured for his advisors to be quiet and waited for Jasmine to elaborate. But on Pinnacle's side, the reaction was entirely different. Richard Turner, the executive vice president, looked as if he couldn't believe his ears. His eyes widened in shock, then narrowed with skepticism and anger. His colleagues, interpreters Paul Evans and Martin Harris, exchanged astonished glances as if they had witnessed the impossible, a black waitress speaking fluent Arabic. This defied both their expectations and the prejudices they had carried their entire lives. "What did you just say?" Turner gritted out through clenched teeth, his voice thick with contempt and fury, as if her mere words had gravely insulted his inflated ego. Jasmine remained unshaken. She repeated herself more slowly, clearly, and precisely, making it easily understandable for all to follow. "I said that Sheikh Khaled's dissatisfaction stems from a critical translation error in Section 4.3. Your interpreters rendered the preferential voting rights in Arabic as absolute voting control, wrongly implying that Pinnacle intends to seize total decision-making authority if performance milestones aren't met." Turner's face darkened as Jasmine's confident corrections struck his arrogance and deep-seated prejudices. Yet, instead of acknowledging the truth, he tried to dismiss her expertise, his tone growing sharper. "And how would you, a mere black waitress, understand such complex terminology? Are you trying to outshine us with half-learned knowledge from a few books?" Some Pinnacle team members chuckled mockingly, silently siding with Turner. How could a young black waitress eclipse the professional translators they had paid hundreds of thousands to hire? But James Wilson, neutral until now, studied Jasmine carefully, his gaze assessing. In that brief moment, he recognized something extraordinary in this small woman he had never considered before. Jasmine met Wilson's gaze and spoke softly but firmly. "Mr. Wilson, I hold a master's degree in international finance from New York University and worked 2 years at the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. I know the region's culture and financial terminology intimately. This translation error led Sheikh Khaled to believe Pinnacle seeks to monopolize control, undermining the essential trust for a partnership." Her words plunged the room into stunned silence. No one dared speak, not even Turner, whose cheeks flushed with anger and shame. Sheikh Khaled, who had listened quietly until now, finally spoke, his deep, measured voice cutting through. "Miss Bennett is correct. This error sowed our doubts about Pinnacle Investment's true intentions." He turned to Jasmine with newfound respect. "I am impressed by your skills and expertise, Miss Bennett. How is it that someone of your qualifications is here serving coffee at this meeting?" For a moment, Jasmine hesitated, then offered a polite, calm smile. "After the financial crisis, my family faced hardships. My father passed away suddenly, and I returned from Abu Dhabi to care for my sick mother and support my younger sister. I took this job, Your Highness." Her simple explanation filled the room with a different silence, a silence of admiration and respect from Sheikh Khaled, a flicker of embarrassment from Wilson, and a stunned discomfort from Turner and the Pinnacle team. Finally, Wilson broke the silence, his voice tinged with sincere respect. Your Highness, with your permission, I propose that Miss Bennett join our negotiation team to help clarify these misunderstandings. Sheikh Khalid nodded in agreement. I am fully in accord. This is the first step toward restoring mutual trust. At that moment, Jasmine felt the shift in the room. She had stepped out of the shadow of invisibility, not through anyone's charity, but through the true competence she had quietly honed through hardships. Yet she knew this was only the beginning. The real battle to dismantle prejudices and earn recognition was still ahead. As Sheikh Khalid looked at Jasmine with respectful eyes, everyone in the presidential suite of the Westwood Hotel seemed to recognize the earthquake that had just occurred. Yet Jasmine knew this was only the start of a much longer, harder battle, the fight against the deeply ingrained prejudices of those seated around this powerful table. Sheikh Khalid straightened, observing Jasmine with bright, genuinely curious eyes. He gave a slight nod and, in a warm, clear tone in English, asked, Miss Bennett, you have made a strong impression on me. Could you tell me more about your background and qualifications? His question was like a wide-open door, inviting Jasmine to step forward and assert her worth. She understood this was not just an opportunity, but also a responsibility. The responsibility to break the unjust prejudices that had weighed on people like her for so long. Jasmine offered a gentle smile and a modest nod, then responded in a calm, measured voice full of confidence. I hold a master's degree in international finance from New York University, with a thesis on sustainable investment structures for Gulf sovereign wealth funds. After graduating, I spent 2 years at the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, where I analyzed and helped build financial models for major projects across the Middle East. Once again, the room fell completely silent. Jasmine's simple yet clear introduction left the Pinnacle team stunned. Paul Evans and Martin Harris exchanged perplexed glances, only now understanding how she had so easily spotted the critical error they had missed. James Wilson raised an eyebrow, a look of surprised admiration crossing his face. Yet, amid the astonished and respectful expressions, Richard Turner remained a clear exception. Arms crossed, his eyes narrowed with doubt and discomfort, he sneered sarcastically as Jasmine finished her introduction. "Oh, that's quite impressive," drawled Turner. "But forgive me if I remain skeptical. Miss Bennett, how does someone with your qualifications end up serving coffee in this hotel?" Turner's words fell like a cruel blow intended to unsettle Jasmine and undermine her confidence. Some Pinnacle team members averted their eyes, visibly uneasy with his question. Yet no one spoke to defend her. Jasmine took a deep breath, keeping her gaze steady, though her heart pounded. She understood Turner's intent. He wanted her to lose her composure, to appear weak or uncertain, proving she didn't belong here. "My father passed away suddenly," she replied in an even voice, her tone unwavering. "My family faced severe hardships, and my mother fell gravely ill. In that situation, I needed flexible working hours to care for her and my sister. This job at the Westwood Hotel allowed me to pursue my doctorate in international finance at Columbia while earning enough to support my family." Turner grunted, his eyes still brimming with suspicion and disdain. He made it clear he had no intention of letting go of his prejudices. "That's very touching, but allow me to be frank. How much can we truly trust your expertise, Miss Bennett? All you've done is spot a translation slip, a minor blunder. Do you really have the knowledge and professional depth needed to contribute to the complex discussions we require far beyond a few simple terms?" Wilson shot Turner an unmistakable look of irritation, but before he could speak, Sheikh Khalid raised a hand to stop him. The sheikh fixed Turner with a cold, clear gaze. "Mr. Turner, I do not believe this is the respect owed to someone who has just helped save this critical negotiation. I have confidence in Miss Bennett's professional abilities. At the very least, her detection of this grave translation error surpasses the work of your expensive professional interpreters. Sheikh Khaled's cutting words drained the color from Turner's face. He clenched his teeth, fists tightening. Jasmine quietly appreciated the Sheikh's defense, but she knew she couldn't always rely on others to protect her. Stepping forward, she faced Turner directly, her eyes resolute and unshaken. "Mr. Turner, I understand why you doubt, but I believe a person's worth should not be judged by their current job or the color of their skin. I'm not here to beg for your trust. I only ask you to judge me on my abilities, not the unjust stereotypes you impose." Silence enveloped the room once more. Turner was speechless, anger and shame flickering across his face. Sheikh Khaled nodded in approval, and Wilson rose, speaking slowly and decisively. "I think we've wasted too much time on baseless debates. If Sheikh Khaled agrees, let's resume our discussion on the contested terms. And this time I'd like Miss Bennett to join us directly to clarify each point of friction." As Wilson finished, Jasmine felt the palpable shift in the room. This was truly her first challenge, a fight against the prejudices she would need to overcome to earn the recognition she deserved. The air in the presidential suite of the Westwood Hotel grew even more oppressive, as if every breath had to carve a path through an invisible barrier of suspicion, prejudice, and tension. As James Wilson invited Jasmine Bennett to join them to clarify the contested terms, he realized this was more than a business decision. It was a test of every value he had ever claimed to uphold. His gaze involuntarily shifted from Jasmine to his interpreter team, Paul Evans and Martin Harris, two middle-aged white men he had long trusted as reliable experts. They had once been celebrated in diplomatic circles and praised by major partners. Yet here they were, unable to handle specialized terminology, causing the very misunderstanding that had nearly derailed the $5 billion deal. In his mind, he still heard Jasmine's confident words ringing out, but beside them he heard the fierce echo of his own buried prejudices, biases he realized he had never truly confronted. At that moment, Sheikh Khaled raised a hand, breaking the silence that had settled over the room. His firm, resolute eyes fixed on Jasmine, and his authoritative voice rang clear. "Mr. Wilson, I would like Miss Bennett to take a seat at the negotiation table with us. I am certain she has the skills and understanding needed to help us resolve these misunderstandings. This is the best way to proceed with today's meeting." The Sheikh's unexpected proposal stunned everyone. Paul and Martin exchanged panicked glances. Richard Turner reacted instantly, his tone sharp with barely concealed anger. "Your Highness, I respect your opinion, but I must object. This is no time to play games by bringing an unvetted waitress into a $5 billion negotiation. It turns this critical meeting into a farce." Sheikh Khaled responded to Turner's outburst with a cold, stern look. "Mr. Turner, I have clearly stated my position. My confidence in Miss Bennett is based solely on the expertise she has demonstrated, not her background or current role. If you disagree, that is your prerogative. But let me reiterate, this is my condition for continuing these negotiations." The Sheikh's firm words struck Turner's pride. His face flushed with anger and shame. He turned to Wilson, his voice laced with disappointment. "James, are you really going to trust her? An obscure black waitress, untested and uncertified? You want to risk our entire company on someone who merely spotted a minor translation slip?" Wilson remained silent. He took a deep breath and studied Jasmine, striving to read the calm determination in her eyes despite the storm around her. She stood proud and steady amid the prejudicial and doubtful stares, never flinching, never yielding to Turner's crude attacks. In that charged moment, Wilson recalled the principle on which he had built Pinnacle Investments: fairness and respect for true merit, regardless of color or origin. Yet, He had never truly been tested on that conviction until now. Finally, Wilson straightened, looking Turner in the eye. His voice was steady but firm. "Richard, the professional interpreters we hired made the critical error that nearly cost us this deal. I cannot continue to entrust our success to a team that has proven its shortcomings. I want to give Miss Bennett a fair chance to demonstrate her abilities." Turner froze, clenching his fists nervously as he struggled to suppress his rising anger. "You're making a huge mistake, James. You'll regret this decision." Wilson didn't respond to the threat. Instead, he turned to Jasmine and spoke with symbolic warmth. "Miss Bennett, please join us at the table. I hope your presence will help us resolve the remaining issues." Jasmine nodded gently, then advanced calmly and took her seat between Wilson and Sheikh Khaled. Her eyes remained serene, though her heart raced. She knew this was the most crucial moment of her career. Turner stood motionless, fury and resentment burning in his eyes at being sidelined. He realized his power and prestige at Pinnacle were now on shaky ground, all because of someone he had never respected, an ordinary waitress, a black woman who had suddenly become the center of this historic negotiation. As Jasmine settled into her chair, she felt Sheikh Khaled's confident gaze, Wilson's attentive look, and Turner's searing hostility. She understood that her greatest challenge lay not in jargon or finance, but in breaking down the invisible wall of prejudice that Turner and others had built for decades, and she knew her fight had only just begun. As Jasmine settled into the plush leather chair at the conference table, a weighty, significant silence descended upon the presidential suite of the Westwood Hotel. This was more than a mere change of seat. It marked a decisive turning point, a shift in power and exposed prejudices laid bare for all to see. Jasmine felt every eye on her. Sheikh Khaled's confident gaze, Wilson's cautious yet hopeful look, and above all, Richard Turner's icy, defiant stare. Turner remained rigid beside the table, his eyes narrowing into slits of resentment. Clearly, he could not accept that Jasmine had claimed a place meant for Pinnacle's white professional interpreters. Suppressing his anger, he vowed to find any flaw in her expertise. A single small mistake would be enough to cast her back into the shadows of invisibility. Sheikh Khaled gently reopened the discussion with a deeply technical question in Arabic, his eyes fixed on Jasmine as if to test her true capability. "Miss Bennett, could you explain Section 6.2 regarding the performance evaluation mechanism and the additional equity contributions required if the project fails to meet agreed objectives?" The room fell into tense silence. Jasmine caught Turner's contemptuous glare. He was clearly waiting for her to hesitate so he could pounce, but Jasmine remained calm. She nodded, then responded to Sheikh Khaled in impeccable Arabic, perfectly pronounced. "Your Highness, Section 6.2 stipulates that if the project's performance falls below agreed milestones, Pinnacle must provide additional equity contributions as specified in the contract. However, the current confusion stems from a mistranslation of additional equity in a way that suggests Pinnacle could unilaterally increase its stake to seize control of the project. In reality, the original English contract requires consent from both parties for any additional capital, with control remaining equally shared." Jasmine's clear and precise explanation drew a satisfied nod from Sheikh Khaled. His expression softened as if his deepest doubts had finally been dispelled. But Turner refused to accept defeat so easily. He interrupted abruptly, his tone openly provocative. "Miss Bennett, that sounds convincing. But are you absolutely certain your understanding of these Arabic financial terms is correct? I think we should verify before moving on." Unperturbed, Jasmine switched to clear, confident English, loud enough for all to hear. "Mr. Turner, I am entirely certain of my interpretation. This is not just linguistic mastery. It's based on my practical experience at the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, where I helped structure similar financial models. Turner clenched his teeth, anger and bitterness flashing in his eyes. Unable to bear her calm and confidence, especially from a black woman he had long dismissed, he posed another question, deliberately using even more complex jargon to trap her. Very well. Then can you explain the cascading risk allocation structure under Section 9.4 of the contract? I'm sure you know it, don't you? Wilson frowned, visibly displeased with Turner's relentless provocation, but he remained silent, observing. Jasmine nodded and met Turner's gaze calmly before delivering a detailed response. Mr. Turner, the cascading structure you mention is a widely used method to allocate cash flows and risks in large-scale investments. Specifically, Section 9.4 provides that project cash flows are prioritized as follows. First, repaying bank loans. Next, returning equity contributions to both parties, and only then distributing remaining profits according to initial equity percentages. The current misunderstanding arose because the Arabic term lost its essential technical nuance, leading Your Highness to believe Pinnacle had priority to recover capital and gains. Turner's face paled, and for the first time he visibly lost his composure. The black woman he had scorned had answered each of his toughest questions effortlessly, and even uncovered another major error he hadn't anticipated. Wilson, who had remained silent during the exchange, now looked at Jasmine with sincere admiration, tinged with regret. He realized she was not merely on par with his six-figure experts, she had surpassed them. The truth left him stunned and ashamed of his own appearance-based judgments. Jasmine sensed the change in Wilson's gaze and knew it was a sign that her fight against prejudice was beginning to bear fruit. Yet she remained vigilant. Turner's hostile stare reminded her that the real challenge lay ahead. Once again, the room fell into deep silence, but this time it was filled with respect and admiration as everyone began to see Jasmine Bennett not as an invisible waitress, but as the exceptional financial expert she truly was. When the meeting took a short coffee break, Jasmine rose discreetly, fully aware of the eyes still fixed on her. For the first time in these 3 exhausting days, she no longer felt invisible. Yet in this moment of recognition, Jasmine felt more acutely than ever the sacrifices and trials she had endured to get here. Stepping out of the presidential conference room, she walked down the hallway toward the small coffee prep room at its end. She needed a moment of solitude to master the whirlwind of emotions coursing through her. As the door closed behind her, she shut her eyes and took a deep breath, only for painful memories to surface beyond her control. A soft, caring voice pierced her reverie. "Jasmine, are you okay?" She opened her eyes and saw Emily, her young white colleague with kind blue eyes, who had been the only person to show her kindness from the first day Jasmine arrived at the Westwood Hotel. Emily stood there, holding a steaming cup of coffee, her expression brimming with genuine concern. "I'm fine," Jasmine replied with a small smile, though a trace of sadness lingered in her eyes. Emily stepped closer and lowered her voice as if sharing a secret between them. "I overheard people talking in the hallway. They're really impressed with you, Jasmine. But why would someone as capable as you stay in this job for so long?" Jasmine met Emily's clear, sincere gaze. Part of her wanted to dodge the question, but she realized she needed to share her burden, the invisible weight she had carried for so long. She took another steadying breath, her voice soft but heavy with emotion. "The truth is, it wasn't my choice, Emily. My father was a construction engineer who worked his whole life to give me a good education. But the 2008 financial crisis took everything: his job, our home, and ultimately his health. I was working at the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority when he suddenly died of a stroke. I had to rush back to the U.S. to care for my sick mother and support my younger sister, who was still in school. I had no choice but to take this coffee server job at the Westwood Hotel to earn enough money and still have time to finish my doctorate at Columbia. Emily fell silent, tears welling in her eyes. Jasmine paused, her voice trembling as she continued the most painful part of her story. But what hurt me the most wasn't having to do this menial work. It was the racism in American finance, Emily. For months, I sent hundreds of applications to banks, investment firms, and major financial companies. They always praised my skills, then politely declined with a line like, "Unfortunately, we don't have a suitable position at this time." I knew what they really meant. I was a black woman, and in their eyes, I would never be worthy of those power rooms. Emily's tears flowed freely now, her voice trembling with emotion. I had no idea. You've suffered so much, Jasmine. I'm so sorry. I never really understood what you've been through. Gently, Jasmine took Emily's hand and offered a benevolent smile. Don't cry, Emily. It's not your fault. But I want you to know that the battle I'm fighting today in that room full of powerful people is the same battle millions like me fight every day. It's not just my story. It's a struggle against a society that judges people by the color of their skin and their background instead of their true ability. Wiping her tears, Emily's expression shifted from sympathy to fierce determination. Jasmine, you're not alone. I might not be able to change the whole world overnight, but I'll do everything I can to support you. I'll be by your side in the days ahead, no matter what happens. Looking into Emily's determined eyes, Jasmine felt a warmth, a solidarity, and a confidence she hadn't known in years. It gave her new strength, knowing she was no longer fighting just for herself, but for all those marginalized by prejudice and discrimination. Thank you, Emily. You have no idea what that means to me, Jasmine said softly, gratitude shining in her eyes. The two women stood together in that small room, sharing a silence that would change their lives forever. Jasmine knew the greatest challenges were still ahead, but now she would face them knowing she wasn't alone. When Jasmine and Emily returned to the presidential suite of the Westwood Hotel, Jasmine immediately sensed how everyone's expressions had shifted. Some looked at her with discreet admiration. Others still bore cautious, wary glances, and the most striking of all was Richard Turner's cold, piercing stare, brimming with resentment. Jasmine knew the hardest battle lay ahead, and that Turner wouldn't give up easily. As everyone settled into their places, Sheikh Khaled resumed the meeting calmly with his usual courtesy. Yet, Jasmine felt the tension still lingering in the air. She wondered if she had the strength to face the challenges to come. Across the table, Turner discreetly pulled his phone from his suit pocket, planning to slip into the hallway once the meeting began. His hands trembled with stress and anger as he quickly dialed the admissions office at New York University, where Jasmine claimed to have earned her master's degree. He spoke softly as someone answered, "This is Richard Turner, Executive Vice President at Pinnacle Investments. I need to verify a certain Jasmine Bennett. There are reasons to doubt her qualifications." Minutes later, Turner nearly dropped the phone in shock when the NYU admissions officer responded, "Mr. Turner, we've checked our records and can confirm that Jasmine Bennett earned a master's degree in international finance from New York University with highest honors. She also received a special distinction scholarship at the graduation ceremony." Turner's face drained of color, his knuckles whitening on the receiver. Fury and humiliation overwhelmed him. He couldn't accept that the woman who had openly defied him was truly more accomplished than he had imagined. But rather than concede, Turner devised a bolder strategy. He would publicly humiliate Jasmine before Sheikh Khaled and everyone else. He returned to the meeting room just as Sheikh Khaled finished a detailed overview of the remaining contested contractual points. Barely had the sheikh paused when Turner leapt to his feet, his voice hard and provocative. "Pardon the interruption, but I must clarify something important. Miss Bennett, I've just checked your background, and I'm frankly surprised you hold the degree you claim." The room fell into stunned silence. Sheikh Khaled frowned at Turner's aggressive tone. Wilson shot Turner a disapproving look. Turner pressed on, venom dripping from his words. "Having a degree doesn't necessarily prove real-world competence. To protect everyone's interests, I believe you should demonstrate your expertise here and now." His mocking, degrading challenge carried the weight of prejudice crashing down on Jasmine. Yet this time she didn't falter. She rose slowly, met Turner's gaze, and spoke with unshakable confidence. "Mr. Turner, I'm open to any questions you have about my abilities. Feel free to ask." Turner's lips curled into a cold smirk as he posed the most complex question he could devise, intending to trap her before Sheikh Khaled and all present. "Very well, Miss Bennett. Explain precisely the financial structure of an equity kicker in an international real estate contract and its specific application in Section 11.8 we're discussing." Several Pinnacle team members exchanged anxious glances. The equity kicker is a highly specialized concept that challenges even the best experts. Turner's satisfied smile betrayed his conviction that Jasmine would stumble. But Jasmine didn't falter. She launched into a clear, step-by-step explanation with astonishing fluency and precision. The equity kicker is a mechanism that allows the lender or investor to receive additional returns beyond the standard interest rate if the project achieves exceptional profitability. In our contract, Section 11.8 stipulates that if the project exceeds its initial profit targets, Pinnacle and the Abu Dhabi Investment Fund will share the excess profit proportionally to their initial stakes. This provision protects both parties' interests while incentivizing maximum performance. The room seemed to hold its breath at Jasmine's impeccable exposition. Turner stood speechless, his face shifting from red to white as bitterness and defeat washed over him. Just as he opened his mouth to object again, Sheikh Khaled interrupted with a cold, disappointed rebuke. "Mr. Turner, throughout this meeting I have witnessed your disrespect and prejudice toward Miss Bennett. I have remained silent long enough, but now I must say your discriminatory attitude disappoints me deeply." An awkward silence stretched out. Turner froze, hands trembling, humiliated before everyone. Wilson turned to him with clear disapproval. Sheikh Khaled continued sternly, "If these negotiations fail, I want you to know, Mr. Turner, that your prejudice and lack of professionalism will be among the primary reasons." Jasmine stood there, deeply moved. It was the first time someone in Sheikh Khaled's position had defended her against Turner's entrenched prejudices. Yet she also understood her battle was far from over. Turner's bitterness would only make him more dangerous and determined than ever. When Sheikh Khaled's stern rebuke ended, the presidential suite of the Westwood Hotel fell into an oppressive silence. James Wilson stood motionless, staring at the stunned, shame-filled expression on Richard Turner's face, feeling as if he had just awakened from a long dream in which he had lost sight of his own values. Wilson had never felt so uncomfortable. For years, he had proudly transformed Pinnacle Investments into a top-tier firm, always asserting that equity and cultural diversity were its core values. And today, in this very room, he was confronted with a bitter truth. He, too, was part of the culture of prejudice and discrimination he had publicly denounced. His gaze involuntarily settled on Jasmine, sitting upright, calm, and proud. A woman he had barely noticed hours ago had demonstrated exceptional skill and extraordinary courage in the face of contempt from his own company. Wilson realized this was about more than the $5 billion real estate deal. It was about transforming his own mindset and that of the entire firm to dismantle the unconscious biases he had nurtured for so long. When the meeting took a short break, Wilson approached Jasmine. "Miss Bennett," he said softly, his tone more sincere than ever. "May I speak with you privately for a moment?" Jasmine looked surprised but nodded gently and followed him into the quiet hallway. Alone, Wilson took a deep breath, his eyes stripped of their usual confidence and authority, replaced by sincere remorse. "Jasmine," he began gently, "I want to apologize, not just on behalf of the company, but personally. Over the past few days, I overlooked your true abilities because I couldn't rise above my own unconscious prejudices." Jasmine met his sincere gaze and responded calmly. "Mr. Wilson, I accept your apology, but what I truly seek, what I and many others like me deserve, is respect and fair recognition." Wilson fell silent, her words resonating in his mind like an alarm bell. He understood she spoke not only for herself but for countless talented individuals buried under prejudice. Finally, he nodded, determination in his voice. "You're absolutely right, Jasmine. I must change that. Starting today, I will do everything necessary to correct my mistakes and those of this company." He paused, determination shining in his eyes as never before. "And the first thing I'll do is publicly announce to the entire firm and our partners that you are now Pinnacle's lead financial advisor for this $5 billion transaction." Jasmine was momentarily stunned, her heart swelling with emotion at a turn she hadn't dared imagine hours earlier. She quickly composed herself and offered a grateful smile. "Thank you, Mr. Wilson, but understand this is not a favor or special privilege. It's a role I will take on with full responsibility and expertise to prove that a person's worth doesn't depend on the color of their skin or their background." For the first time, Wilson's eyes gleamed with sincere admiration. He saw in Jasmine the embodiment of courage and dignity, qualities he believed he possessed but had never fully realized. He nodded, his tone warm and genuine. "I understand perfectly, Jasmine. That's exactly what Pinnacle needs right now. Someone like you who can guide us to become a truly equitable and progressive firm." They stood together in the hallway, the silence between them filled with a deep understanding that transcended words. When they returned to the meeting room, Wilson immediately spoke, his voice clear and decisive. "Before we continue, I have an important announcement to make. In light of today's events, I am appointing Miss Jasmine Bennett as the official lead financial advisor for Pinnacle on this transaction. From now on, she will have independent authority to advise and decide on all technical matters." The room buzzed with surprised murmurs. A few people smiled and offered polite applause to congratulate Jasmine. But Jasmine noticed Turner's face pale, his anger and helplessness more evident than ever. She knew that while she had won a significant victory, Turner wouldn't give up easily. What mattered most to her at that moment was that Wilson had truly begun the process of repair and establishing genuine equity. As Wilson's surprise announcement landed, the presidential suite of the Westwood Hotel emerged from its stunned silence and focused on the final contract details. But Jasmine knew this victory was only the first step. The real battle was still ahead. Sheikh Khalid, ever polite and incisive, flipped through a few new pages of the dossier before him. His gaze slowly swept the negotiation table, lingering longer on Jasmine. "I am very pleased that Miss Bennett has joined your official advisory team," he said. "However, before finalizing, we must clarify a few additional key provisions." Instant tension rippled through the room. Wilson's brows furrowed. He knew exactly what weight those words carried. Turner, lurking in a corner, practically held his breath, silently betting on Jasmine's next misstep to restore his own pride. Setting the page down with deliberate calm, Sheikh Khaled continued in a measured tone that carried weight. "We require a special protection clause for the Abu Dhabi Investment Fund. This will ensure our veto rights over critical financial decisions, protecting us from volatility in the U.S. markets. I am aware this complicates matters, but it is a non-negotiable condition." Wilson's shoulders visibly tensed. Agreeing would mean ceding significant proactive control to Pinnacle. Refusing would shatter the $5 billion deal at the last minute. An oppressive silence fell. Wilson turned to Jasmine with pleading eyes. She was the only one he trusted to navigate this impasse. Drawing on every ounce of confidence she had earned, Jasmine spoke with calm authority. Your Highness, I fully understand your concern, but I believe we can craft a more creative solution, one that protects both parties' interests while bridging Gulf financial culture with U.S. investment standards. A flash of curiosity crossed Sheikh Khaled's face. Miss Bennett, please outline your proposal. Jasmine rose and approached the whiteboard. With precise, fluid strokes, she sketched a detailed financial diagram. Rather than an absolute veto, let's adopt a conditional veto mechanism. Under this framework, Abu Dhabi's veto would only trigger in specific scenarios. For example, if projected returns fall below our agreed safety threshold. To ensure transparency, we'd form a joint oversight committee with balanced voting rights between Pinnacle and Abu Dhabi. Any veto decision would require at least one affirmative vote from Pinnacle's representatives. This preserves both parties' essential controls while maintaining clear, accountable governance. A profound silence followed Jasmine's presentation as everyone absorbed her solution. Wilson studied the board, visibly impressed. He had never imagined a solution so elegant and culturally attuned. Turner's face drained of color. Once again, Jasmine had exceeded all expectations, neutralizing his latest attack. Finally, Sheikh Khaled broke into slow applause, sincere admiration in his eyes. Remarkable, Miss Bennett. I have met many international finance experts, but few can devise such a nuanced and precise solution so quickly. This proposal meets our requirements and preserves the spirit of an equal partnership. He turned to Wilson with determination. I will sign this contract today on one final condition. Wilson leaned forward. What is that condition, Your Highness? Sheikh Khaled's gaze fixed on Jasmine. Miss Jasmine Bennett must be the lead advisor on this project. I need assurance that every subsequent decision involves her active, hands-on participation. Only then can I sign with full confidence. The room collectively held its breath at this declaration. Turner seemed ready to collapse. He recognized that Jasmine had officially eclipsed him in authority with the approval of a major international partner. Wilson rose, his voice strong and unwavering. Your Highness, I fully agree. Pinnacle Investments commits to ensuring Miss Jasmine Bennett acts as the lead advisor on this project with all necessary authority and support. Sheikh Khaled nodded with satisfaction, offering Jasmine a warm, approving look. Then we are fully agreed. I hope this venture not only succeeds financially, but also stands as a testament to overcoming prejudice and affirming true merit. As Wilson extended his hand to seal the deal, a wave of silent applause filled the room, soft but deeply significant. Jasmine stood proud, bathed in the glow of a triumph unlike any she had known. Yet even as the contract was signed, Jasmine felt the fight against prejudice was far from over. She caught Turner's lingering, hostile gaze, far from extinguished, and knew her quest for true respect and equality had only just begun. As the applause in the presidential suite of the Westwood Hotel faded, Jasmine could see it clearly. Everyone's eyes had truly changed. There was no more doubt, derision, or hesitation. Now they looked at her with sincere respect and admiration. Wilson shook Sheikh Khaled's hand firmly, relief and pride washing over him. After all the obstacles and tensions, the $5 billion real estate deal was finally secured, and this success meant more than money. It shattered the long-hidden prejudices of the firm. Addressing the entire negotiation team, Wilson turned to Jasmine, his voice full of pride and sincerity. Allow me to officially thank you, Miss Jasmine Bennett. Without your excellence, your courage, and your insight, I don't believe we would have achieved today's success." The room erupted in even louder applause. Jasmine felt her throat tighten with emotion, but she forced herself to remain composed, offering a modest nod and a gentle smile. In the corner, Turner stood motionless, his face pale, eyes burning with envy and anger. He knew his position at Pinnacle was now seriously threatened, and the woman he had once dismissed had far surpassed him in both title and the respect she commanded. Sheikh Khaled approached Jasmine, his gaze warm and clearly impressed. "Miss Bennett, I am truly impressed by what you've demonstrated throughout these negotiations. I never imagined someone here in the U.S. could be so versed in Gulf culture and financial structures." He paused, smiled kindly, then continued in a more serious tone. "I plan to open a representative office for the Abu Dhabi Investment Fund in the U.S., and I would like to invite you to be its lead director. With your skills and understanding, I believe you will be an exceptional leader, helping us develop our international cooperation as effectively as possible." A stunned silence fell over the room. This was no ordinary job offer. It was a powerful, prestigious leadership role any international finance expert would dream of. Wilson stepped forward, briefly appearing troubled before regaining his composure. He realized that if Jasmine left, Pinnacle would lose not only a rare talent, but also the living symbol of the cultural change he strove to build. He took a deep breath and spoke softly but with determination. "Your Highness, I am delighted that Miss Bennett is held in such high regard by you. I'd like to make a similar offer here and now." Turning to Jasmine, his eyes sincere and serious, he said, "Jasmine, I officially offer you a senior leadership position at Pinnacle, overseeing our entire division of strategic international projects. We will ensure you receive a special compensation package with a salary and benefits commensurate with your talents." Jasmine froze for a moment, overwhelmed by two monumental offers delivered almost simultaneously. Just days ago, she had been an almost invisible waitress in this room, and now she stood on the brink of the greatest opportunity of her life. Turner resembled a stone statue in the corner, his face drained of color, hands trembling with fury and despair. He understood that Jasmine's resounding victory today was his own humiliating defeat, and there was nothing he could do to change it. Meanwhile, Sheikh Khaled looked at Jasmine with a friendly smile and gentle words. "I know this is a big decision for you, Miss Bennett, but whichever choice you make, I have full confidence you will achieve even greater success." Wilson nodded in agreement. "I fully concur with that. Whether you stay at Pinnacle or join His Highness's team, you will have our full support." The room fell silent once more, all eyes fixed on Jasmine awaiting her decision. She took a deep breath and spoke calmly but proudly. "I am deeply grateful for the trust and incredible opportunities you have both offered me. This is more than a turning point in my career. It's proof that a person's ability isn't determined by race or background. I will take time to carefully consider my final decision. But whatever I choose, I promise to give everything I have to live up to that trust." The room erupted in enthusiastic applause, a sincere demonstration of agreement and respect for Jasmine. She stood there prouder and more confident than ever, knowing she had won a dual victory, not only a spectacular triumph in the $5 billion deal, but also a profound victory in the fight against prejudice and the affirmation of her own worth. Yet, as the applause faded, Jasmine caught Turner's vicious gaze, still fixed on her. She knew that while today had been a landmark victory, the struggle against people like Turner was far from over. Her greatest comfort, however, was knowing she was no longer alone on this journey. That morning, the entire Pinnacle Investments team gathered in the grand auditorium at headquarters. The soft murmur quieted as James Wilson approached the podium, his face solemn, his eyes filled with a sincerity his staff hadn't seen in years. He surveyed the vast room, lingering for a moment on Jasmine, seated in the front row with perfect posture, her gaze bright but humble. He took a deep breath, gathering the courage to say the words he knew he must. "Dear colleagues of Pinnacle," he began, "today I am not here to celebrate our recent $5 billion deal. Though we have every reason to be proud, I am here to address something far more important, something that has weighed heavily on me these past few days." A profound silence fell as all eyes fixed on their powerful CEO. Wilson paused briefly, then continued with sincere humility. "I must admit that I, and Pinnacle Investments as a whole, have harbored deep, unconscious prejudices in this deal. It was Jasmine Bennett, someone we initially overlooked and underestimated because of her race and job title, who awakened me to this truth. I have come to realize that while we have long proclaimed equality and diversity as our core values, we have never truly confronted or dismantled the invisible barriers we ourselves created." He looked directly at Jasmine, his voice growing firmer. "I want to publicly apologize to you, Jasmine Bennett, and to every Pinnacle employee who has suffered injustice due to racial or background-based prejudice. I promise each of you that starting today, our company culture will truly change. From now on, everyone here will be evaluated solely on the basis of their ability, contribution, and real merit, regardless of the color of their skin or their education." As he finished, the auditorium erupted in enthusiastic applause, a clear sign that his sincere message had resonated. At the back, Richard Turner remained in stunned silence, his face ashen, eyes downcast with shame and helplessness. He realized the era of prejudice he had represented was truly ending at Pinnacle. Wilson turned to Jasmine and gestured for her to join him at the podium. Jasmine rose, walking with confidence through the applause. Standing before the microphone, she surveyed the audience, feeling a deep sense of responsibility fill her heart. She knew these words would carry weight far beyond herself. "Hello, everyone," she began, her voice calm and soft but strong. "I am truly honored to be here today, but I am not here to talk about myself. I am here to speak of something much greater." The room fell completely silent, all eyes fixed on her. Jasmine took a deep breath and continued. "For years I have lived in the shadow of prejudice and discrimination. I know the bitter feeling of seeing my efforts, skills, and qualifications go unrecognized simply because of the color of my skin and my background. But I also know I am not alone. Countless people still endure the same thing every day." She paused, her eyes softening yet growing more resolute. "In the past few days at Pinnacle, I learned that the greatest power to overcome prejudice is not hatred or resentment, but perseverance, courage, and the ability to prove one's true worth. Each of us has intrinsic value, and that value should never be defined by race, gender, or origin." Her sincere words moved many listeners to tears, and even those who typically remained impassive fell silent, their expressions reflecting contemplation. Jasmine's voice grew stronger than ever. "Today, I am here on behalf of all those who have ever been sidelined to say we deserve fair treatment and respect. I also bring a message of hope. True change is possible if we have the courage to confront and dismantle the prejudices that persist. Let Pinnacle be a place where every individual's ability and dignity are truly recognized and honored." As Jasmine finished, the auditorium exploded in sincere applause. Wilson stepped beside her, his gaze warm and resolute. "I promise you all that Pinnacle Investments will do everything necessary to ensure every employee has equal opportunity, regardless of race, gender, or origin. And starting today, Jasmine Bennett will be the living symbol of that change." The entire room rose in a standing ovation. Jasmine looked around, her heart swelling with emotion. In the corner, Turner slipped away quietly, bearing his final, bitter defeat. But Jasmine understood this moment was not just her personal triumph. It was a victory for all those who had ever faced discrimination. A clear sign that change is truly possible if each of us has the courage to stand up and defend our true worth. 6 months later, on a beautiful spring morning, the vast plot of land at the heart of Manhattan buzzed with unprecedented activity. A large stage had been erected, and thousands of guests, members of the press, international investors, gathered in eager anticipation. The air hummed with excitement as everyone awaited the groundbreaking ceremony for the $5 billion joint project between Pinnacle Investments and the Abu Dhabi Investment Fund. At the center of the tension stood Dr. Jasmine Bennett, dressed in an elegant navy suit and flanked by James Wilson and Sheikh Khaled on the stage. She exuded confidence and radiance, a stark contrast to the overlooked coffee server in the Westwood Hotel meeting room. As Wilson stepped forward, his voice rang out across the venue. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a very special day. Not only are we launching the largest real estate project in our company's history, but above all, it marks a new era, an era of transformation, equality, and justice. And the clearest symbol of that era stands right here beside me, Dr. Jasmine Bennett. Thunderous applause erupted, many rising with eyes gleaming with admiration for Jasmine. Sheikh Khaled offered a warm smile and polite applause, his expression reflecting both pride and satisfaction in the woman who had overcome all prejudice to become such an exceptional leader. The ceremony was a resounding success. As Jasmine descended the stage, she received countless congratulations and warm handshakes from international investors. Yet even in this triumphant moment, her gaze met Richard Turner's, standing alone in the distance. No longer holding any power at Pinnacle, his face was heavy with disappointment and bitterness. Jasmine let out a silent sigh. This was not a personal victory, but a profound lesson for anyone still harboring outdated prejudices. After the event, Jasmine entered her new office on the top floor of the project headquarters. The modern, airy space featured large windows offering a stunning view of Manhattan's bustling rooftops. As she sat at her desk, she noticed a small, intricately carved wooden box resting on the surface, its lid adorned with elegant Arabic patterns. She opened the box and found a beautifully crafted gold pen and a handwritten note from Sheikh Khaled. Lifting the note, she read the sincere message in English. Judge a person by their inner worth, not their outward appearance, with deep respect and great admiration for Dr. Jasmine Bennett, who has taught us all an important lesson. Moved, Jasmine gently replaced the pen in its box. Leaning back in her chair, she let her gaze drift thoughtfully out the window. In this moment of calm, she reflected on her journey, from the bitter days of repeated rejections due to her skin color, to serving coffee to support her family, and finally to the recognition and respect she earned today. But Jasmine also knew that today's success was greater than herself alone. It was a beacon of hope, a powerful reminder to all those facing injustice and discrimination. You can break through barriers and prejudices if you believe in your true worth. And in the quiet of that room, Jasmine felt the weight of an even greater responsibility. She would continue to fight and inspire, not just within Pinnacle or through this $5 billion project, but on much broader stages, so that everyone could see the value of true equality, genuine equity, and the limitless potential of every individual. She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath, feeling a surge of inner peace and strength. When she reopened them, there was no trace of doubt, only an unshakable conviction in the path ahead and the positive change she could bring. Somewhere out there, countless people like her awaited their chance to be seen and respected for who they truly are. From this moment, Jasmine knew her mission was to blaze a new trail, guiding others out of the shadows of prejudice and into the light they deserved. Jasmine rose and stepped forward, her face illuminated with confidence and hope. As she looked toward the future stretching before her, she smiled, understanding that today was not just her new beginning, but the starting point of a transformative change on a grand scale. A change she believed would ripple across the world, creating a more just place for us all. What do you think of Dr. Jasmine Bennett's inspiring journey? Have you ever witnessed or experienced a situation like hers in your work or life? Thank you for staying with us until the end of this story. We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below and let us know your favorite part. If you enjoyed the journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories like this. And don't miss out. Hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest content. Your support means a lot to us.